This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome, Fee for Service Dentist Podcast, Dr. Sonny Spirit. Today, our guest, an old friend, Dr. Josh Belof. You may have remembered his episode of his second fee for service startup practice in the Smokey Mountains of North Carolina. He just decided he had a change of life decision and he said, all right, I need to be in the mountains. I need to have my children there, my wife. They felt it was their place to be. And they set up and started right from scratch. They started the practice. Their first day of work, I think, was a day or two after our interview. And he's here to tell you just how fantastic things went. So really, really good interview. And then he did bring in an associate in about 14 months in. And then his philosophy with the associate is really heartwarming to listen to and hear. And took basically nothing and made it something. And he has a practice that's doing close to $900,000 a year with a 40% overhead. So you can do the math on that and figure out the profits for yourself. As always, the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. Kettenbach Dental is excited to announce the first major advancement in fluoride varnish treatments. No longer using alcohol or resin. Instead, patients will want this new treatment with a muco-adhesive dimethicone gel, which leaves your teeth feeling smooth and silky with no more grit. Contact Kettenbach today for more details and do more varnishes that patients will appreciate. Call 877-532-2123 or visit KettenbachUSA.com. Hopefully you like the podcast. If you do, click like, share it with your friends, subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. iTunes still, unfortunately, has two versions. It's the same. We don't have all the old episodes completely linked on both of those, and we're trying to merge them. Dealing with Apple has not been easy, but we're continuing to try to get that done. But we have all our episodes are out there on Spotify for sure. So if anywhere you get your podcast, we are on YouTube. So if you want to watch the videos of the shows, they are there. Today's show, we do use a few screen shares to show you some spreadsheets that Josh was happy to share that shows all his numbers, all the production and how that's boiled out and looking at it over a 12-month time. And then his projection after he changes his work schedule, what that's going to look like. If you don't like it, please click don't like. No, just kidding. Please contact me. Send me an email, sunnyspirit@gmail.com. Text or call me at 607-624-2962. Love to hear from you. If you want to be on the show or you have an interesting topic you want to discuss, we'd love to have you. Always looking for great content. Okay, enjoy the day, folks. Appreciate you all.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spirit. Today, our guest is an old friend, Dr. Josh Belof, and I'm going to read this to you because this is a little bit of his bio that we had right before he started his second Fee for Service startup. And we talked to him 2 years ago, the day before he was opening his doors. So he didn't know how it was going to go. So Josh Belof, child of God, husband to Elizabeth, father of 3 amazing young girls. 1 year ago, well, that's 3 years ago now, moved to Franklin, North Carolina, the mountains of Franklin, in a very small rural town at the base of the Smokey Mountain National Park. And it was about to open his second fee-for-service startup. He had sold his previous fee-for-service startup after owning it for 11 years and no commitment to return to dentistry. Spent the year evaluating his opportunities, and then this is what happened. And he bought this, or excuse me, rented this place, and I'm going to let him pick up from here. But let's welcome Josh to the show. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, Sony, I'm doing really, really well.
So, how fearful were you before you opened up that second one?
Not much, should have been perhaps, but I guess when you've done it before, we've done big things before in our life, so we weren't too crazy. That it all seemed to make sense what we were doing. I recognized the good opportunity that it was, but yeah, you're right. I actually found an old space that used to be a dental office. It was just ready to go
Really?
on Main Street, across from the hospital, traffic flow, in a town that needed a dentist so badly that no other dentists were taking new patients. Very rural, out in the country, so there's not a lot of dentists there. I mean, it's
So,
pretty much can't miss.
how many dentists in that community?
In the county, there's about 35,000 people in the county. There's about 5 offices, probably about 8 dentists, I'm
Okay.
guessing. The corporation
So,
just opened up, but yeah.
so 35,000, eight dentists by the numbers, right? They say, what is it? 4,000 per doctor is about a right number, or is it five? What's the number?
I think if you're going to do a startup, they want to see like at least 2,000, 2,500 to 1. If you go by Scott Luna's method, he's looking for much better ratios than that. But 4,000 to 1 is pretty darn good. And that was an older demographic report. I have a feeling it was actually better because we couldn't keep up with the new patient flow coming in. So who knows
All
what the
right.
number truly was.
So you got this practice, you opened it up. What did you want the practice to look like? Let's just talk to people about what you wanted it to be. I know you had some kind of clear directives on your payment policies and stuff, but just run through that real quick. Let's get the background.
Yeah, the big points: fee for service, where we do not accept your assignment, which was new to me. I'd done fee for service where we accept assignment, so that was going to
Correct.
be a barrier to entry. Number two, I wanted to bring my brand of dentistry through the mountains, which fee for service tends to be a higher touch point customer service. We did a lot of stuff with Cyric. I think we did nice dentistry, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of that up there from my competition. From looking at 1 or 2 offices seemed to do things really nicely, but it seemed like they needed some good care. Um, Number three, it wasn't meant to be a huge financial like profit center. It was going to be profitable because the overhead has to be low there because of the fact that my rent is only $2,000 a month and that the space was already built. So my loan was pretty small. So
How
and
many
I didn't
rooms did
we
just how many
It
rooms
has
did you?
4 operatories, but we still only have 3 equipped.
So you
It's
set up
me, an
three.
associate, and a hygienist.
Okay.
Yep. So I set
So
up
you're
3,
basically
and
work out of one room.
I've always worked out of one room.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can produce a lot of dentistry out of one operatory. You give me 2, I will do night guard deliveries in room 2 and denture adjustments. But if I'm working 2 rooms, I'm not doing dentistry the way I want to do it.
Gotcha.
That's stressful, and in my opinion, possibly less productive. But we street and plane quadrants and all that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
yeah, we only equipped 3 rooms. We did it inexpensively. Now we have 8x 511 chairs, but we got refurbished ones, so they're very inexpensive.
Hmm.
Because I did all the construction myself with a friend. We put the floors in, we did the painting, but I didn't have to build walls. The plumbing was in, the infrastructure was there. I hired a guy to put some brick inside to make things look. The ops are beautiful. Our total construction costs were 30 to 40 grand on this project, which is crazy cheap, right? We opened this practice for next to nothing. It allowed me to buy things like Cyric, but I found a demo floor unit, so I saved money there. I bought a used milling unit for my zirconia. I bought another used milling unit to have a second one because I can. I bought a CBC. That's where we splurged. We bought a CBCT because I didn't have to spend any money in construction. We built this thing for dirt cheap. My costs are so low, but it's beautiful. You never know. I got high tech. I've got 3D printers, 3D printer. I've got everything a dentist could want toy wise, except electric hand pieces. We might get those. But yeah, it's a nice place to practice. It doesn't
Okay.
cost a
So
lot.
what did what's the number? What did you spend to get into there? Get into that?
I think we're about 350 to 400, and that might even be high.
All right, so let's take it high. Let's say $400,000 was what your loan
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
And now you're open. You have not one person walking through the door until they do, right?
Hmm.
You have no established flow, and you're just hanging the shingle in terms of in the old terms, right?
Yes.
And you're also saying you have to pay me at time of service. You take your own insurance benefits back to you, correct?
Correct.
Um, so it's a different model probably than anything else in that county.
Correct. I think there's one other fee for service office, but they do accept assignment.
Right. So it's a completely different model. Like, well, why do you got to get paid? Why can't you wait for insurance? Right? You get that question, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what does it look like? How does a practice from that? Because we're going to talk about what happened to it. Go from zero to what was your first year? 800,000 was your?
Year one, we did about, I think 550 or 600.
Yeah.
The numbers I
So
sent you were the last 12 months.
oh, okay. So, but from zero to basically 50,000 a month.
Hmm. Yeah,
How
and
does
we were
that happen?
busy new patient wise. Part of it, I think,
Mhm.
was just the pent up demands. We didn't really spend money on marketing to get new patients in. We relied upon A, location. We were on the main road. B, we put out a lot of Facebook videos before we opened. Literally just me with my iPhone filming a quick and dirty video explaining who I am, what we do, the various videos, and then I would didn't spend money boosting them. I just shared them to the community pages in town, so everybody
So
saw
very
it.
authentic, though. Very authentic.
Yeah, very authentic. Yeah,
Mhm.
and each video would get 4 or 5 thousand views in like a day. And yeah, we would just book up and see new patients. Nobody else is taking new patients in town. Like it's pretty hard to screw this up kind of
Oh
situation.
wow. So pretty much you're right. So there is a pent up demand. If nobody's accepting new patients, which is such a rarity, right?
Yeah,
You have and they're not this is not going to touch their businesses essentially. If you think about it, right?
yeah,
If I'm in business and I'm busy enough, I'm not taking new patients. Well, those patients have somewhere else to go. And it's like no skin off my back, right? I'm
yes.
in my happy little world. So were the other dentists welcoming or not?
Some were. One was especially welcoming. The other fee for service office in town. His name's been. He's one of when you live rural, there you'll learn there's some families that kind of run the town. Like there's big names and they all share the same last name. He was one of them. And he was actually very friendly. He helped me. He passed resumes on to me to find employees. He helped me with this. Like he's very friendly and welcoming, which is nice.
Wonderful.
When
That's good to
patients
hear.
would call his office to get in and he couldn't see them, he would actually tell them, "Oh, go call Signature Dentistry. They're seeing new patients." We actually got a lot of patients from him before he added 2 associates, and then he needed to fill those up. We
Gotcha.
lost that referral source. But yeah, he's been great. The other ones have been, I don't know, dentists can be weird. They're kind of
Yes,
they
they
don't
can.
play nicely together in the same town. I've never understood that.
But
we
it's
will we will get into a story about that, and it has to do with my associate because I do not subscribe to that theory at all, and it's kind of how him and I got hooked up.
well, I've seen it, right? I've been in this business for a few years. And like I say, it's been a minute for me. So in an area that's got a captive audience, right? I don't understand that. I just don't understand that. This has no impact on you. By your own definition, I'm not accepting new patients.
Right. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because the generation or two before me, they relied on other dentists and they said, listen, when we were expected to hang the shingle, and other offices they were expected to send some patients our way to help us get started. So
Hmm.
it was such a different community of dentistry as well as dental society and the meetings. People were dressed in suits. They took it very seriously. And they sort of taught me, not that I wear suits at all to anything, but they did
Right
sort
on.
of teach me that it's just camaraderie. It's
Yeah.
companion, it's community. And I
Where did we
never
lose
will
that?
understand it. I never will understand it.
Hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah. Where did we lose that? That
I
sounds
have no
great.
idea.
I'd love to have
Yeah,
that.
we lost that. I think when it became, when we started taking courses and we had to market and we had to, advertise and we got to get these patients and we have to do more cosmetic and we have to do this and you have to. You can be very happy doing what you're doing. You got to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
So that's an aside. So
Hmm.
now patients are booking online How do you
Yeah,
know who's coming in?
we had an online portal. Gosh, I'm trying to remember back. I know we had an online portal that we was easy to use. We used it with a company called Medento. It was very easy for patients to do. We could customize it, and I had my blocks in there so they could only be put in certain spots.
Uh-huh.
And I think um, once they scheduled, we then called them because
Sure.
fee
Sure.
for service offices depend on touch points, communication points.
Sure.
Automation can be tricky with fee for service because you're losing a lot of what makes you special. So we made sure that we called those patients after they set up their appointment. We had a little scripting thing we'd go through, some important things for them to know. We were obnoxiously clear that we didn't take their insurance.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't matter. It didn't matter because they needed to get in to be seen. We did have scripting, of course, on how to handle um, this conversation. How do you have it's probably the most one of the if it's probably the most fundamental thing that a fee for service office needs to do, I think, is how do you talk to that patient who has insurance and wants to use it? And how do you
Yeah.
tell them that we take it, but we don't? And we probably train on that twice a year in my office because we start to lose the scripting and the important words we need to say to do that. But yeah, it worked out.
So what did you so how did you hire your team? How did you put that together?
That was hard. That's been the hardest challenge of rural, his team.
Hmm?
My wife worked the front. She's very good at that. Hospitality is her gift.
Mm-hmm.
Very important in a fee for service office. She answered the phone with the mindset of selling the practice to whoever was on the phone. She wasn't just someone to answer your questions.
Sure.
And then we hired one dental assistant. I tried to find a hygienist, but there were none. So I didn't do hygiene. So new patients were coming in with just me and a dental assistant and my wife. We were doing the new patient exams and we put them on a list and we said, when we get a hygienist, we'll call you. And there's so much dental need. I felt okay not doing if I'm doing their pro fee, that means I'm not fixing someone else's tooth or pulling their tooth out.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good triaging, in my opinion. So, your pro fee can wait. If they needed SRP, we sent them to the periodontist. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we had that one team member, that one dental assistant, until we got our hygienist. I think it took 5 or 6 months before I was able to get one, which is a really long
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the beauty of it though. You have your wife at the front, so there's family right there. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
the trust factor and everything else. So you really can hit the ground running, you
Yeah.
know.
And her and I did it before when we did our last startup. She knew what she was
Okay.
doing.
Okay. So at what point do you bring someone else in, or does your wife stayed in that role?
Yeah, no. So my wife stayed in for about 9, 10 months, I think, maybe 12. And then we hired a great girl named Joe. Joe is a patient of ours who is young. She just graduated FSU. Super impressive patient, right? Looks you in the eye when she communicates, asks good questions, like everything about it. She just had that good energy. So she doesn't know a thing about dentistry.
So
So we
Florida
hired
State
her.
grad, FSU,
Yeah,
did you think?
yeah. Yeah, just
Okay,
floating
so
around in the
college
mountains with
grad.
her family. Yeah. And so we saw something special in her. We asked if she ever thought about getting a job in dentistry, and she now runs the front desk alone. My wife is not there anymore. My wife trained her for a month or two, and she's been absolutely amazing. Finding
All
people with
right.
experience is very hard up there. There's
How
only
about the pay? A
35,000
college
people.
grad in that role? I mean, does the pay work out?
For her, it does. Look, we know she's a rental. She's not going to be there forever. In fact, she's looking to apply for a master's degree right now, so we might end up losing her very soon, which would be
Okay.
sad. But I mean, we pay her what would be normal for that position,
Mm-hmm.
and she does a great job at it. She's the kind to I can give her a project and she would love that. And she wants to take my little projects and visions and run with it. She comes to me with ideas. We just
Mm-hmm.
implemented new phone systems because of her ideas, which has been really awesome. People like that are so I need at least one person on my team who can take a project and just take it to completion for me.
There you go. All right. So when you started, you have a salary for your wife, right? Or for that position at least, right? You have a
Right.
salary for your dental assistant. You have a loan, and you have your, utilities and rent and stuff.
Yep.
What was your BAM? What was your bare ass minimum?
Pretty low for the first 12 months under that scenario. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it was like $15,000 to $20,000.
All right. So let's say it's $20,000. You got to bring in $4,000 a week, $5,000 a week over 4 weeks to just pay off
Yeah,
your obligations, right?
right.
Okay. So, and you're working 4 days a week. Was that the strategy? Was your plan
I think we did 4. Yeah,
when you opened? So 4 days a week.
reluctantly.
So $1,000 a day is what your bare ass minimum is, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So not that you're scheduling it that way, but you're going to hit that probably with no issues at all. So what does it look like at the end of the first month and you look back and say, this is going to work, or we need to tweak things?
No, it was very clear it was going to work. We hit those numbers I mean, I think we were doing 40 or 50 grand a month right away. I
Which,
don't have
like
the data sheets in
McDonald's,
front of me, but yeah.
that's a McDonald's move, right? Then their first month, they do 90% of what they're going to do forever. So
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the,
And
the, the, the time, the work and the time and the effort that went into planning where you were going to be, right?
mhm.
Need, demand, patient numbers, location, etc.
Yeah.
That all those things, help in the immediate success of the
Yeah.
practice. So
And we immediately templated the schedule from day one. It wasn't just an open book. It was new patients go here. And we did start inserting major production blocks in week 1 because I need a place to do those 3 crowns that I know they're going to do. So
okay,
and we started doing crowns and filling restorative right away. A lot more
uh-huh.
extractions than I thought right away. A lot more dentures than I thought right away. But it doesn't take a lot of crowns to hit. A crown and core is what, 1,600-1,700 bucks up there. Doesn't take a lot of those to make your numbers. It really doesn't. And
Hmm.
my advantage is I've been doing this for 17 years. So I guess at that point, 15 years. I've been working on case acceptance, and we take photography on everybody. And we show them their teeth. And if you give me a patient who wants a healthy mouth and they can afford some dentistry, they're gonna say yes in our
Did
chair.
did you go in with financing too? Like, did they have financing options available right away or no?
Yep, we do in-house financing, which works beautifully. Everyone's gonna say don't do it. When you do it properly, it works amazingly. I've been doing it for over 10 years. Since 2010, I've been doing in-house financing. It's beautiful.
So
It's no credit
explain
checks.
that.
It's quick. Okay. So we offer 6 months, no payments, no interest. In ours, we do charge a small administration fee up front to get set up.
Wait,
They
wait,
give
wait.
us our credit.
6 months,
Yes.
no payment?
I'm sorry. 6 months, no interest.
6 months, no. So 6 months is
Thank
the
you.
same as cash, right? Okay.
Correct. 6 months of interest.
Okay.
All you need to have is a valid credit card number. We enter it into our online dashboard. We don't keep credit card numbers in the office. All we see is the last 4, and it just automatically bills their credit card for 6 months. And so the only time we get a default is if they change their card or they max out. My
Sure.
default rate over doing this for 15 years is so close to 0, it's ridiculous. I hate the
Well,
financing companies that take
but
10% from me.
but think about it, to set it and forget it, right? You're doing it
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's automatically billed and it's automatically covered. And the credit card company is the one that's done all the credit checks. You don't have to worry about their credit. Credit company's done
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I want to say it's a no-brainer, but you're right.
It's a
You're not
no-brainer.
getting
It's hard to get someone to pay $1,800 for a crown, but it's easy to get them to pay $300 a month for a crown.
right.
It's a different conversation.
100%.
And we do have third-party financing for people who needed even smaller payments, Care Credit, and now we're using Cherry.
Yeah, Cherry's pretty
Um,
good. We started using them. They're a good
yeah,
company.
it's quick, it's easy. So we're
Yeah, Wells
experimenting with that.
Wells
We'll see how it
Fargo we
goes.
did a lot with, and Wells Fargo's getting out of the business. So we had to call some of our Wells Fargo patients and say, listen, they're shutting their doors on this. So
No kidding.
it's just going to be Care Credit and Cherry. Oh yeah, came out this week.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't believe it. We've used Wells Fargo's for 20 plus years. They were very good.
Oh, wow, crazy.
So okay, so you've got in-house financing. Your first month, you said you're 40. So the profit is there. Do you bang down more on your debt, or what's your strategy then?
Well, my debt was at like 3%, and it's a business expense. So no, I'm not paying that loan down. I'll keep
Okay.
that loan as long as I can at 3% interest. Um, no, we're just building the cash, maybe paying myself some money, letting
Okay.
the account grow.
All right.
Not really doing any infrastructure upgrades because we just did them all.
Well, you also said that your hope was to maybe bring an associate in after a year, correct? You weren't sure if that was going to happen. Let's
Yeah, it was
go
kind of
there
tongue
now.
in cheek. Yeah, it's kind of like a joke, right? But I think it's uh I was talking to a friend yesterday and she's doing so much dentistry. And my conversation yesterday was, if get an associate as soon as you can. Your life is so much better when you can get an associate in there. All of a sudden the pressure is not on you to produce all the dentistry. You can take time off. You can work 2 days a week. Most of our overhead, at least in my practice, but most practices, is fixed. Once my fixed overhead's covered, all that extra production numbers is so much profit. So I learned it the hard way. My very first startup practice, I couldn't give up control. I had to be the only dentist, and so I was so much stress and pressure. And once I brought an associate, it took me 7 years to finally do it. I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? The hard part up here in the mountains, though, is just like it's hard to find staff, it's hard to find dentists. Like, we're 2 hours from Atlanta, we're an hour and a half from Asheville, 3 hours from Charlotte. We're in the middle of nowhere. And a lot of people don't come and move out here, especially professionals and doctors and lawyers. So my plan was that I was going to have to be the dentist forever. That I wasn't planning on finding an associate, but man, it sure be nice. So I found one. And if you got a second for a story, I think it's interesting how I found him. All right. So we were just talking about how dentists don't talk to each other in
Yeah.
town. All right. So I think I had only been open for like a month. And I'm walking through Lowe's after work with my daughter. And I knew there was a new grad who just came on to another practice in town. His name is Jake. And I don't really know what he looks like, but I'm pretty sure that way on the other side of Lowe's, that was Jake. And I said, no, I got to keep shopping. We got to hurry up and get home. But I'm like, no, because I've been the new guy in town and people sometimes, I said, so we went out of our way
Jake?
just to go talk to Jake. Hey, say, Jake, um, you're Jake, right? Yeah. And if you need any help with anything, I'd be happy to help you with anything. Just let me know,
Just
and
be
just like
your
a
authentic
little
self.
tug,
Yeah.
yeah, a little tug inside said, go talk to that guy. Not
Well,
knowing that 1 year later, by the way, with no intention of like trying to get work for me. I just
right.
opened my
Yeah.
practice. It was just go talk to that guy. So anyway, a year later, he ended up coming to work for us, partly because of that little conversation that happened a year earlier. And when he was free to want to come work here, the practice wasn't quite ready by most people's metrics to bring on another associate. But I also knew this was another one of those opportunities that you don't say no to. You make it
Mhm.
work. You find a way. So we found a way to get him on board a year into opening the second practice. I immediately dropped down to 2 days a week, have been ever since. He works 4 days a week, and we try to feed him as much dentistry as he can possibly handle. And even
Now,
if it
are
means
you
I
there?
have openings.
Are you there on the
Yes,
2 days that you're not working?
yes. At
That's
first I
key.
am.
But
Yeah.
that's key. That's true mentorship, right? That's being not just being available, that's being present. And I
Yes.
think so often we fail as owners to make that connection and make that extension to help that person,
Yeah.
to be there, to help them to answer that question. Hey, what happens in this scenario? Hey, this comes up, right? I'm sure there's a million little small touch points you might call, but a million small details that are helpful when you can help them skip the landmine yourself, right?
Going out of network can be really scary, but staying in network can be even scarier and riskier too, long term. Insurance reimbursements aren't even keeping pace with inflation, which can really affect the quality of your work, not to mention the quality of your life. I'm Allison Bernstein.
I'm Dr. Josh Bernstein. We went out of network over 20 years ago, and we can show you what worked, what didn't, and how you can do it with minimal risk.
ThriveOutOfNetwork.com teaches you everything you need to know, including the most important part, which is getting your team on board. It teaches them how to communicate with patients and getting them comfortable with the entire process.
Go to ThriveOutOfNetwork.com and check it out today. That's ThriveOutOfNetwork.com.
Our show is sponsored by our good friends at Metadenta. Metadenta has served the dental community since the 1940s with award-winning innovation and a large catalog of dental products in most facets of dentistry. I personally use several of their products and recommend them to anyone I can. They are a sponsor of the program and are offering 30% off. That's right, 30% off anything site-wide at metadenta.com. Simply use the code FFSD30 at checkout and get your 30% instant savings. From CR-rated prophy angles, hygiene, high-speed handpieces, burr, endo, whitening, they more than have you covered. Their customer service is amazing, and they are willing to walk you through an order at any time. So if you have any questions, give them a call at 800-221-0750. That number, 800-221-0750. Or send them an email at orders@metadenta.com and mention the Fee-for-Service Dentistry Group and get your discounts.
And a step further, I want to data dump everything I know into him as quickly as possible. All the mistakes I've learned over these years. So he doesn't have to do them.
So his learning curve is a skyrocket. Yeah.
Skyrocketed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was at a practice that he did not have mentorship at the other practice.
Mm-hmm.
He really wanted that, especially with the style of dentistry we did. He was thirsty for this stuff. And CEREC, we taught him CEREC in the first couple months. And
what was his expectation coming in?
We talked about what we both wanted. We were very clear about expectations up front. His expectations for this is his great thing. He said, I'd rather learn, even if it means I don't make as much money as I did at the last place.
Well, stop right there. That's a perfect mindset. I want to learn, and I accept the fact that I may have to give up a little bit of this to get a little bit of that. So you got to have some gives and gets. And I think so often especially in our social media world, well, this is what you need to get. This is what you need to demand. This is your daily minimum, et cetera, et cetera. I want mentorship. You can't have everything. And it's not realistic. It's not realistic.
No.
He's not going to be able to do what you're doing after 17 years when he's in his first or second year. But with your guidance and help, his pathway to get there is going to accelerate so quickly. He's getting an MBA immediately in 3 months. That there's some value in this,
Somebody gave that gift to me when I was fresh out of school.
100%.
I was very fortunate that I had a fee-for-service mentor that I went right into practice with, and it affects every single day of my career ever since.
Yep.
So if he's willing to accept it all, I'll give it all to him.
Right, but that's I think you agree. That's one of our responsibilities as dentists for that next generation or the generation we work alongside of. We have to me, you have to leave it better than when you found it.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's easy to get into the mindset of your associate, he just needs to make money for you. But if you really look at the numbers, like you can make, if you give them everything and make a great job in mentorship and pay them well, and we can get into pay structure too. I think we pay associates wrong. It's going to be good for you too. You have that content associate who's learning. Their case acceptance is going to get better. They're going to produce more the more you pour into them. And it truly is win-win. My life is so much better with an associate because we take care of our associates. We give them tons of CE. We pay them on production. We pay them a good percentage. It's a good gig, and I'm clearly benefiting from that.
But in your scenario, your production and collection should be equal because of your policies in your practice, right?
That's right. They are.
Because you're running a tight ship as you want to. But in the numbers that you sent me too, let's talk about that, right? You're looking at you had a 40% overhead, right?
That's right.
Is that what it was in the first year?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can pay an associate X, because you have only 40% overhead. You have 60% profit. So if you're giving them 35 or even 40%, there's still a window there where you're going to make some money if that's your desire, right?
Yeah, and you're going from 4 doctor days a week to 6.
Right.
So my
So how
overhead
did you
actually
work it?
probably goes even lower.
Correct. How did you work it with your staff? You had to hire another assistant, I would assume.
We hired one more assistant. She actually came with him from the other office, and she's
Oh,
been very, very good. So that's where the increased cost came from. But I kind of needed another assistant anyway. It's
yeah,
always
you're
good
going
to
to
be a
have to.
little bit overstaffed. Just half a team member overstaffed is perfect.
Right. So there's 2 days a week that you're both working together, correct?
That's right.
And then he's there the other 2 days by himself.
That's right.
And the hygienist is there 4 days.
That's right.
Okay. And then your front desk is there for the 4 days. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's take a deeper dive then.
Sure.
What did it look like when he started? You said you set it up so he could be successful. How did you coach it with patients? How did you coach it with him? Were there
Mhm.
certain procedures that he was comfortable with, and certain procedures that had to be with you? Talk about how that worked out.
Yeah. So fillings and things, of course, he can do. Extractions, his skills exceed my own. So he's gonna. I feed him all the surgery almost. Crowns, we had to get him up to speed because we do them through CIRIC, but he learned very quickly. We took a lot of time after out of the office. I got him a CDocs membership to watch the videos online. He got up to speed very quickly on CIRIC, but we gave him as much dentistry as he could do, even if it meant I had a hole on Monday morning. So I take it very seriously that when he comes to work here, I do need to provide for him. And if that means he always got the priority on a patient. And if a patient requested me, they would have me, and we still do
Sure.
it that way. But no, it was fill him first, and then you fill my schedule.
Mhm.
Now we were so busy, we were both full anyway. But yeah, there were some mornings where maybe maybe his patient canceled, but I had a crown, and we asked the patient if the patient didn't care, we slid him over to his calm so he could produce, learn. And then the cool thing about CIRIC is, it blows your preps up this big, and we both share the same office side by side. And so we would do all the designs together. I critiqued every single prep he did. Hey, you might want to try using this burr. You get just a little smoother
Uh-huh.
margin here. And you could see every single day his preps got better and better and better and better. His designs he doesn't need me to design. I only helped him with design for like the first month or two. And then he's been doing everything himself there. Anterior cases, I'm still mostly doing. We don't do a ton of those out in the mountains, but it was cool. A couple weeks ago, I had a case 7 through 10 on a Tuesday. So he got to see me do 7 through 10 with CIRIC. And then he had a 7 through 10 case on Wednesday. So he got to do his case. That was fun. I helped him with design a little bit, but no, he's been rocking and rolling and diving deep in. We don't do tons of complex dentistry in our practice. It's 1, 2 crowns at a time.
Right.
We try to do them as quadrants. I think this morning he's doing fillings on 7, 8, 9, and a crown on 11. That's a very productive 2 to 3 hour appointment
Mm-hmm.
on one patient.
So what does his income look like? He was with you. When did he start? How many months in?
So he's been with me for 10 months,
10
10
months.
full
So
months.
so you were a year in at least, 12 months in, 13, 14 months in?
Yeah, I was at about month 14, 15 when he came on board.
Okay. So he came on month 14. Has he been a full year?
Not quite. So he's been here for 10 months. It'll be a full year in November. And
What's his pay look
produced a
like?
lot. So he gets 33% production
Okay.
straight up.
And now
We
there's
deduct a
no,
little bit for lab.
yeah, I was gonna say, what do you do with lab? Because you're doing a lot of your in-house lab with the CIRIC. So how,
Right.
how do you account for that?
So he pays 50% of lab. There's no fixed lab fees. I don't charge him to use the CIRIC.
Right.
We print our own night guards. So there's no lab fee there other than the design fee, which is very cheap.
So
And we're
your
starting to print our own
dentures.
dentures. Yeah, so
What's that?
dentures and removable is pretty much the only lab bill we have, but we're starting to switch that to 3D printed.
Really?
Yeah, experimenting. We've only done a couple cases with it. They're
Yeah,
okay.
we're moving into it, but we had to get it. We got a different printer and we got some other software, but yeah, we're
Yeah.
moving. We're kind of heading that direction right now. We're in the learning curve ourselves. So
Hmm.
Chris Griffin is getting me going. I don't know if you know Chris or talked to him or gotten involved with him, but he's a big digital
I have
print
not.
guy and he's down in Mississippi and he's great. He's just such a nice down to earth guy. You'd love him.
Cool.
So the lab fees are 50%. You know, you
Hmm.
can make any argument you want, but the bottom line is the lab fees are minimal compared to the number of procedures that you're doing.
Yep.
You're not really doing a lot of stuff. So you're not saying, oh, we're making this digitally printed night guard and the materials are X and blah blah blah. It's you're not nickel and diming the person, right? You're treating them just
Hmm.
like you'd want to be treated, essentially, right?
That's
So
right.
so what does his pay look like?
I think so far he's made about 150 grand over 10 months, and it
So
will only
he's on
get
track to make
better.
180, 190, 200, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, in the first year, and
First year.
next year for sure he'll be in the probably 220 to 250 range, most
Yeah,
likely.
because it's a learning curve, right? So he probably started out a little bit slower, but
And because I'm not going to be there very much, so that's probably part two of the conversation.
okay. So do you want to dive into these numbers at all, or what do you want to do?
Sure, that's fine by me. Yeah,
All right, so
I'm very
Josh,
comfortable being transparent with the practice numbers.
yeah, so Josh shared some information with me. Um, so let's pull this one out. This is a hypothetical. Let's pull up the other one. Let's pull up the actual one here. And then let me figure out how to share my screen because I'm a novice at this. So, all right, let me do something. Okay, folks, sorry we had a little hiccup there. We're going to sharing the screen, so those of you listening, we'll try to describe it as best we can. But what we have in front of us are the last 12 months actual numbers. So if you're on and watching this in YouTube or the video component, which actually I think Spotify plays if you want it, we're showing some of the things. So this starts at September 2023 and it goes to August 2024. Okay, so Josh, go ahead, talk about it. What's it look like to you?
Well, the key here is that the overhead is very, very low,
Mm-hmm.
40%, which is a direct reflection of your fees, more so than your costs, but costs can drive it down. But the top line collections is, I mean, some people would probably laugh. It's the number is 865, basically 865,000 for the year. And a lot of people would call that a very low producing office and not successful. But when your overhead is 40%, I disagree.
Uh-huh.
And we've engineered our life to not require a lifestyle where we need a ton of money, but that is a ton of money at
It
40%.
is. Yeah,
You
so
know,
the number, for those of you not listening that are not seeing this, the practice collections is 860, we'll call it 865, and the profit is $515,000.
that's right. And
That's
to be
real money.
clear, we then had to pay the associate. But when
Hmm.
we talk about EBITDA and profit levels and things like that, those are real numbers. That's what we talk about.
And after paying the associate, you have here your profit is 345,000.
That's right.
So in this scenario, the associate's at 170 approximately, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So do you want to go through a little bit? And hygiene, what's really interesting, folks, is hygiene production is 11%, 10%, 8% of the monthly production, 9%. And then April and May, there's no hygiene.
Yeah, we lost our hygienist for 2 months.
You did, right? But your numbers don't really
But we
take a
produced 106,000 the first month we were missing one. So you tell me. Yeah, we had our best month when we didn't have a hygienist.
Okay, we'll leave that for interpretation. Then June, July, and August, we're back to we'll call it around 10% of their office productions coming from hygiene. Okay, which
Which
most
most people
people
would say is broken.
correct. Most people say it's got to be 30%, right?
Hmm.
But again, the type of services and the practice that you're in, it's 3 rooms.
Right.
And the patient demand is your hygienist is probably booked out well past 6 months, I would think, at this point.
She's actually not. The recall system's broken, and it's literally the thing we're working on this week and next week to fix it. But here's the other thing. We bring all our new patients in through hygiene, through 2-hour
Uh-huh.
blocks, and we see a lot of new patients. The priority in my office is new patients. New patients are the
Uh-huh.
lifeblood of production. However, we also don't have the recall demand, which we should. After 2 years, that's 4 recall cycles. We should have much more recall demand. So the system is broken somewhere, and we're going to dive deep into trying to fix that.
Okay. The one thing this doesn't show, this is kind of just the straight numbers, is your new patients. What's your new patient
Correct.
per month looking like?
It's about 40 to 50, I believe.
Pretty routine.
Yeah.
When the
And I'm
associate came in,
talking
did that number go up?
comp exams only.
Sure.
We also see some limited exam new patients, which I love.
Okay. Yeah, we have a number of those patients. Did those numbers go up when the associate joined or not? Been pretty steady no matter what.
Not really, about the same.
Okay.
But instead of production being booked out like a full month, now we have openings within a week or two. So
Right. I'll tell you, there's a lot to be said for capacity when you have capacity.
oh yeah.
And I don't think, to me, I don't think the goal is to be jam-packed every day. I think the goal is to be, at the end of the day, are you happy with what you did? And did you service enough patients? And then the money should be there.
Right. And I'd rather do one appointment of 2 or 3 crowns than 8 people who need fillings that day.
Right. So
More
here's
productive
what,
and you feel better.
yeah, so here's what the associate, let's talk about the associate wages, okay?
Okay.
They started in, what's this month here? November 2023. Okay. And then in their first month, 11,500. Then in December, they were 13,000. January, they were around 9. So a little up, a little down. Now, starting in February, it's 16. March is 17. April's 21, right? Then it's 19, then it's 15, then it's 12, then it's 16. So I think the first thing is, right, it's never a straight line move. There's up and there's down, just like all practices, I believe. So I think that that's something when you're working with another doctor to make sure that you convey. You're going to have those months where you're going to produce and do a ton of crown preps and a ton of this and a lot of practices. Then there's the month where you got to seat those, where you got to finish that denture when you charged it. There's
Mm-hmm.
just the nature of dentistry. Sometimes some months you're doing a ton of work and some months you're finishing a bunch of work.
Yeah. I mean, you can see 1 month we produced 106, and then the next month we produced 63. That's part of the game you're getting into with fee for service.
Mm-hmm. I think
Not
you're in that
always, but
with a lot of things. I think
yeah.
there's a little. Well, you can see right here between these 2 months, one was 78 and the next one was. Wait, excuse me, did I miss that? Yeah, so right, you were 106 and then you went 64 and then you went 75, then back to 67, then boom, up to 95.
Right.
So there's a little, it's I think a little bit's the nature of the beast, but I do think as those numbers sort of up and down, the overall trend, if you plot every 3 months, it's going to be more of a straight line.
Yeah.
In your case, trajectory up.
It freaked me out in 2010 when we first opened our practice because I didn't
Yeah.
have, now I don't care. I know we have good months, bad months, whatever. We still work when things are slow, we still work on stuff, but we don't ignore it.
Mhm.
But I don't lose sleep when we don't produce well. Just enjoy the time off, maybe.
So what's your biggest take home from this data here?
That you can be, as an owner, still very profitable while feeding your associate a lot of production, right? The months where, I mean, you can see there's some months where I produced not much and he produced a lot. It's still to my benefit, right? Let the associates work, give them work, and then you'll have a happy associate who wants to work more, and you're still going to win. Um, but I mean, I know people don't want to give up control. I don't know why, but man, I don't know. I don't want to be important in the office.
Well,
I want to be
well,
the least important guy.
Tell you what's really interesting. So to his point, if those of you are not looking at this, in the very first month the associate was there, the associate and Josh did the exact same amount of production. They did about $37,500 each. The next month, right? Josh does 36, the associate does 24. The next month, they're back even at 36 too. Right. And then the next month, the associate's at 55 and Josh is at 28.
Yeah.
Right?
We gave him nothing but high fives that month. Like, we're celebrating that he kicked my butt.
And then the next month, and now that continues. The next month, Josh is 25. And excuse me. So his production has been 37, 36, 36, 55, 50, 81, 40, 51, 49 to 61, where your production has gone from 48 when you were solo to 37 to 24 to 36 to 27 to 25 to 29 to 25 to 19 to 11 to 26. So the practice didn't suffer. You have cut back to 2 days. So you would think at 2 days, if your production was around, 50 before, you'd cut it back in half. So you should be in that 20 to 25 range just based on the number of days that you're there. And logically, your associate picks up some of that slack, right?
That's right.
So the numbers just add up, make sense. But there's your point is very well taken. It was an effort, a concerted effort to advance this, as evidenced by day one, even Steven into production lines.
Correct.
Right. And
That's
then
right.
your production falls down and his production sort of stays and then starts to rise. And you look at the learning curve. If you say the first 3 months is what he took to learn, then he just takes off.
Yeah.
That's another fair statement, right? So he's at
It
37,
is.
36, and then boom, then away he goes. Now he's at 50, 55, 80, 40, 50, and his ceiling, he's just going to keep pushing up his ceiling higher and higher.
That's
So
right.
the practice is going to continue to thrive. Have you guys, I'm going to stop sharing this. Have you guys talked about like what's next?
Yes. So the plan is for him to purchase the practice in about a year or two. So I'm not there anymore. So I now live in Florida. I'm not in North Carolina. And I fly up there and I practice 1 week per month. In fact, I leave on Sunday. I'm not going to want to do that forever. And so this practice will become his.
Okay. And you're going to, so you're going to do that. Is that for 1 year? You're going to do that the 1 week a month for a year? Is that
A
the
year
ballpark
or
time?
a year or two, or maybe less than a year. A lot of it's going to depend on what I find down here to do. If I find a good location to do my next startup or whatever. He doesn't want to purchase right away anyway because he wants to keep, or he says he's not ready yet from the business standpoint, which is fine. He thinks in a year or two he'll want to purchase then. And so it's a win-win on that front. It's working. Even running this kind of thing from afar, it's working. But yeah, for now I'll fly up and back and forth 1 week per
So
month,
talk
and
to
we'll
people,
see.
but you're not a hands-off owner. So talk about it, because when we got on, you said you just finished your huddle. So talk about how you manage this, because some people think it's just easy, like, oh, I just walk away and it's there. It's not. Tell me what you're doing in the absence of being there.
I definitely zoom into the huddle each morning, FaceTime with them almost every morning. I'm usually having phone calls with him once or twice a week about a case. Like this morning after the huddle, the mentoring was continuing. We were reviewing the case that he was about to start on this patient with parafunction. He's about to start doing some anterior work on him. So we're kind of going over some things there, having phone calls with my front desk literally just texted me as we're talking about a patient who's a little upset that I'm going to be calling in a little bit to see what's going on. I'm in constant contact and communication. I'm looking at the numbers. They're sending me the end of day sheet every day through text. Still running payroll. I'm still running Facebook stuff to keep the new patient flow going. It's not a ton of work. It's really not. But I'm very, very much involved. And I do think it's important for them to see my face for leadership purposes as well every morning, that I'm not absent. And then when I do come once a month, like we're just picking up right where we left off from last week.
Okay. So it's talk a little bit. Well, the other part that is interesting is in some of the corporate situations, right? You have an entity that's not present per se, but they're just numbers and number driven. So you don't want to be that. You don't want to be like, oh, this is all about numbers, although you're monitoring it. Is your software cloud-based software?
It's not. It's EagleSoft,
Okay.
but I can log into my computer from home.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. The number stuff is about historical trends, being aware. The
Sure.
numbers do not drive, right?
Right.
What drives us is fees, the right people, the right systems, and treating patients the way you'd want to be treating, and then
Culture.
effectively communicating. And when you
Culture.
do those things, you focus on, the numbers just work.
Yeah, it's creating that culture and then driving that through everything that you do,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And the fact that you are there a week a month, that to me is gold.
Hmm.
When you go back, are you working 4 days or are you working 2?
Yeah, I work 4 days when I'm there.
Now, does the associate take those time off?
No, he works.
And you
He
still can
works.
maintain the 2 assistants as employee?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
So
does
it's 3 chairs.
the one assistant pick up some responsibilities maybe with the front too, or no?
When I'm not there, we're overstaffed. And so, yeah, their job is to then help up front. Their job is to help run instruments, just help out wherever needed, make sure we run on time, all those little things. So when I am there, we're fully staffed and, we're pushing the limits of what we can do.
Mhm.
But I can produce out of one chair. He can produce well out of one chair. And the hygienist has her chair. And we can have some pretty friggin' big days when the three of us are working out of three. I have a fourth operatory empty, but we haven't need to equip it. It's not our business model. You don't need it.
Gotcha. So when you go up and you do 4 days a month, what does your month look like at the end? Are you pretty close to where you were when you were doing 2 days a week for 4 weeks?
Well, we just started this. And so there's
I bet
another
you're going to
spreadsheet
find you're going to be close. You're going to be close.
there's another
Guarantee
spreadsheet
it.
I sent you with projections for what this should look like based on our historical numbers, with scenarios of how much I produce and him producing, and does it truly work out? And it still works out pretty dang well, even if I only produce 13 or 15 grand a month. The number one purpose of me going up there is not to produce. I do want to produce 15 in the week when I'm there, which isn't a huge part of pass. The biggest thing is that I'm there is to just keep the thumb on the pulse, provide in-person leadership, culture, maintain all that kind of stuff.
So let's look at that. I'm going to bring up the screen share on
Hmm.
the hypothetical of the model that you have now set you're going to do, right?
That's right. Yeah, you'll see a low production, medium production, and high production scenario.
Okay. So what we're looking at is the spreadsheet, and we're using the actual numbers that Josh has provided here. So the annual production, we're using what's actual, the 865, and then that 513 profit. Now, in the low production model, that 864 goes down by about 100 grand to 770.
Yeah, this is like worst case scenario, like something real, like we just start sucking really bad.
Okay, so we go from good to sucking really bad. Okay, good description.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
profit
and
goes from 515 down to 380. So it's almost a direct correlation. When your practice numbers go down by 100 grand, your profit goes down by about 110 or 115 or so.
yeah.
Okay. All right. The profit after paying associate for yourself still remains at about 180.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's go into the next scenario, which is the moderately productive schedule. So we went from 864, we go to 912. So there's a little bit of a rise. Profit goes up. Well, looks like profit's pretty similar. Yeah, 515 profit then goes to 510, right? The associate who in this scenario is doing a little bit more of the work, right? His pay is now
Hmm.
at 215 and your pay is at 288. So if you continue this model in, moderate production, then if you went to a high production, right? So you went
Hmm.
up to almost 1 million, just under 1 million. So we're going from
Yeah.
865 to about 1 million. So it's up about 140,000, right? So 140, so what's it, a 20% increase about?
And that really is the most likely scenario going forward, right? We're still growing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So again, the
Eh,
profit to the associate now is at 230, profit to your doc, to yourself, right? You go from worst case scenario, which is 180, you're up now to this, you're 320. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see how important it is to give the associate production.
Right.
Truly everybody wins.
And then you have your bare ass minimum, right?
Yeah.
Scenario. And the practice collections at minimum has to be $413,000.
And that would include paying my loan to be
Correct.
a $0 profit. Yep.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Okay. So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Spreadsheets are fun.
yeah, I'll tell you, when you first sent it to me, I was like, whoa, this is, and then I'm like, okay, I'm starting to figure out a little bit of this.
Mhm.
What are some key KPIs? What are some key performance indicators that you look at?
I don't look at many. That's a
Neither do
deficiency
I.
of me. That's a deficiency of me. I'm more interested in the leadership and how you're feeling today.
Well, there's one, right?
Production and collections, man. That I should be more in tune. I totally know I should be more in tune. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to Scott Luna's business mastery course again next month for like the third or fourth time.
But hold on,
And
hold on, hold on, hold on.
we're going to be talking a lot about that.
You're discounting something.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about either you're looking at the result or you're looking at the cause, and you're focusing on the cause,
Right.
which to me is one of the things that I think I like to say that I spend most of my time thinking and working on and
Mhm.
trying to affect are all those other little factors. Because I think at the end, all that other stuff just washes out in the end. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah,
so
totally.
what are the key, we'll just call them, what are the key visceral things that you're looking at that just in your gut need to happen?
We're always looking at what does the schedule look like next week?
Mhm.
Like next week, right now, we have a lot of new patient openings. So that affects what I do today so that next week isn't bad. We're looking at how did we produce for the month? What's one thing I look at a lot is how much dentistry is scheduled for the entire month. So, this month we started with only like 25 or 30,000 bucks on the books for September, or
Mhm.
Sucktember as we sometimes call it.
Mhm.
So I know, so in our morning huddles, we're focusing on, hey guys, just make sure, these new patient appointments, you're really connecting with people. When you're on the phone, just, review the basics of what we've taught to make these connections with people. Because as we connect with people, production goes up. That's how production goes up, connections. Make sure your photographs are really good when we put them up on the screen and we show the page. Don't have blurry photos. Like they have a cracked tooth. They want them to see it so clearly. Just get back to the basics, because those are the things we look at. The
Well,
schedule
those
full
I'm
tomorrow,
talking
and
about.
how's it look for the month?
Those are your fundamental values, right? That create the culture the culture and the fundamental values are what create the results. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thought. Do you use any analytical software like, Dental Intelligence or, Number?
Mm-mm.
There's a bunch of them out there. Do you do any of that, or you just do most of the
No,
dive
no,
yourself?
and I want to someday. I don't know. Haven't cared enough to go through the hassle of making it happen, I guess. I don't think that's something to honor, though. I think that's a
Yeah, but
deficiency
you're
more than
doing
anything.
it though. You're doing it yourself. You're pulling out what's the production schedule for next month, or it could actually be in the Eagle stuff. I am unfamiliar. It's just something I don't spend any time on, which is when I talk about, face value, true fault. That's something I'm not looking at.
Yeah. Actually, I would love to have a team member who wants to dig into that stuff, because I have a feeling taking a practice from 1 million to 2 million probably involves getting into the numbers a little bit more, right? If you want to really fine tune your image, I'm going after the low hanging fruit,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of tweaking we can do. Like, why is my hygiene program so broken? I'll bet if I dug into the numbers, I'd figure some stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Well, now you're getting into, are you going to hire, are you going to put someone in that management position, right? Et cetera. So you're going to start to probably change some of your numbers in terms of your percentage of expenses.
Yeah, that would probably be the logical next step if I really wanted to push growth.
Mm-hmm. And
Shoot
then
for the
you'd probably
moon.
be setting up that fourth room. You'd probably be looking for
Mm-hmm.
another
Mm-hmm.
doc, you know, or another
Yep.
hygienist or whatever the case, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's right.
Increase capacity.
Yep.
All right. Well, fantastic. So I think we can all say that your second startup, which you were anxious about on our last conversation a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think you had just finished laying the tile, if I'm not mistaken, when we recorded. You were laying
Yeah,
tile that
probably.
night, and we recorded. I was like, oh man, that's on your hands and knees. Good for you.
Yeah.
Has worked out. And last question on the personal side, because I know
Mm-hmm.
moving to the mountains, that was something that you wanted to do. That was something you want to do for your family. You talked about it, you know,
Yeah.
in your verbiage. Now there's a little pivot. Talk about on that personal side.
Moving to the mountains was our dream. We'd always lived in Florida, in Tampa area, and we've always wanted to move to the mountains. And when COVID shut us down, we had 2 months to think about life and like why we're not doing what we want to do. I also document on that conversation, the burnout, and I didn't really want to get back into dentistry. So yeah, long story short, we sold everything, including the practice, and moved to the mountains. And we bought a 20-acre farm. And we looked at the mountains from our front yard, and we had chickens and pastures, and had a gun range on the property, and
You're
woods
building
and
a
trail.
chicken
I mean,
coop.
we
If
were
I Then
building.
you
That's
build a
right. I
chicken coop.
built. It was a nice chicken coop too. It was a palace. It was. I'm proud of that thing. Um, God gave us our dream. We got to live our dream for 3 years, and we needed to leave to become what we are now. But it became clear we weren't meant to stay there. I've
Wow.
got literally a list of 50 reasons why we had to go. Some are more important than others. But at the end, you can't trump a good support system. And we had that back here in Florida, and we needed it. We underestimated how much we needed that. We need the support system. The school system up there is not good. The culture up there, we didn't fit in. And those were the really big highlights of what drove us to realize, like, this is beautiful, but it's not the most important thing to be around the beautiful mountains. What we really need is people and some other things. So we moved back to Florida. That's where I'm back. I'm literally back on the same street we used to live on. God arranged for us some pretty incredible ways. It's so clear that we were supposed to come back. We're coming back different people with new life lessons and new perspectives on everything that I never would have achieved if I stayed in the rat race that I was doing before. So we now live amongst the rat race, but we don't have the rat race mindset anymore. And it's going to allow us, I think, to do some pretty cool things. I don't know what it will be. There's probably going to be startup number 3 in my future. I'm looking at some locations down here.
Yeah, you're
But
gonna get itchy. You're gonna get itchy to do that.
I'll get itchy. So, and
And
I've
you
got to
got
sell this.
like
I can't string Jake along either. Jake needs to be
right.
able to buy
And
the
you have like,
practice.
yeah, you have 12, 18-month window here, you know?
Yeah, I got time. I got time to figure out exactly. But the next one's going to be really cool. Yeah, but it's going to be different.
So are you in Tampa proper, or are you in one of the suburbs?
It's called Apollo Beach. Yeah, just outside a suburb of Tampa.
All right. I had an uncle lived in Lutz.
Yep.
I was born in Tampa, and we have a little thing in Clearwater Beach that we go down and visit and enjoy that.
It's a beautiful place, man. There's a reason the growth is insane.
It's nuts.
And there's
I'm
a
surprised
reason
you found a
Heartland
home.
has an office on every street corner too. That's going to be the challenge of the new startup, is competing with 4 Heartlands within like 3 miles. You know, it's going to be an interesting strategy because it will be fee for service. So what does that look like?
It's
That's
interesting,
a little scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll apply the same model.
Yep. That'll be a fun conversation. Well, we'll have to get back in touch with you. So let's put it on the docket. But I do want to talk more, and I want to have an episode strictly on the details of working with an associate. I think that's such a valid information. I think so many people can benefit from it. And I think we scratched the surface a little bit today. I think the gist was, you know, the take home point is feed your associate first.
Yes.
Truthfully.
100%. Yep.
And once they see that, you're committed. They see that you're committed.
Yep.
You want
Yep.
them to be committed, but too many docs are not committed on the other side.
No, it's true. And we hear all the stories of bad associateships.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of them.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. All right, Josh, stay well. And thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate you very much. Always great
Awesome.
conversation.
Thanks, Sonny. Thanks for having me. Have a good week.
Thanks for sharing, man.
Thanks for listening to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee-for-service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.